AirPod Pros are gone. Can you guys hear me now?
Yep, I can hear you.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
we can hear you fine.
Awesome. So, yeah, sorry. I don't know why my AirPod Pros were bugged. Anyways, let me restart with my intro real quick, guys. So, welcome to the dumbmoney.tv community, founded by Chris Camillo, the renowned social arb investor who turned 20K into 20 million by spotting real-time shifts that drive investment opportunities. Our Discord is home to 50,000 investors, mostly stock focused, but plenty of us dive into crypto, trading, and investing. I followed Murad for a while now, and in my opinion, his Bitcoin interview with Pompliano is a top three must watch. Is actually my favorite. So him and Pomp nail why Bitcoin remains a generational trade and investment, and it's a video I would now share to someone new to introduce Bitcoin. Introduce them to the asset class. So, as a multi crypto cycle investor myself, I've been hunting for this cycle's breakout sub asset class, the group within crypto that outshines the winners of the last run. So, the first cycle, it was just only Bitcoin. In 2017, we got Ethereum and the ICOs, which outperformed the altcoins. 2020 to 2021, that was the NFT boom with Ethereum and Solana and their ecosystem taking off and outperforming everything else. So I was digging into what could dominate the 2024-2025 cycle. Is it gaming tokens, social tokens, real world assets? And that's when I heard on the grapevine that Murad was diving into meme coins. So then after watching his Token 2049 video, by the way, these videos are posted in the stage room chat and in the crypto channel. It instantly clicked for me, and I went all in on that sector. But sort of to bring everyone up to speed, Murad, could you give us an intro into who you are, what you do, and kind of break down the core of your meme coin thesis, perhaps touching on how they kind of differ from utility tech tokens?
Yeah, for sure. So, just to give you guys some context, I've been in crypto since 2013 and more actively since 2016. So I've seen four cycles at this point of things coming and going. There's many lessons I can share from my over 10 years in crypto. But first things first, if there's one thing I've learned is that at the end of the day, all of the coins in crypto, they actually represent communities first and foremost, right? They want you to think it's about the tech. They want you to think it's about utility. It's about governance. It's about buybacks. It's about some kind of tech. It's about all of that. But the reality of the situation is that the token is actually the product itself, right? You can also argue that the most important factor driving all of this is the community, is the people. And if you actually study all of the biggest household names in crypto, all of the biggest coins that you've heard about, all of the parabolas that have happened throughout the cycles, whether it's XRP, whether it's Cardano, whether it's Doge, SHIB, and even BTC and ETH themselves, right? What these things are, you have to ask yourself, right? What do these things have in common? And if you actually think about it, the thing that these things have in common is the fact that they have extremely culty, passionate, and hyper online communities that are nonstop 24/7 all around the world on every continent, are always in people's faces. They're very loud. They're very sort of all over Twitter, Reddit, and increasingly, obviously, TikTok, YouTube, etc. Right? So at the end of the day, you have to ask yourself, right? The way I've been approaching this cycle is how can I find the next Doge? How can I find the next SHIB? How can I find the next XRP what they did in 2017, right? What SHIB did in 2021? What GME did in a way, right? I know you guys are all about social arbitrage. I myself I'm mostly focused on crypto, but there's definitely parallels here. And what I've realized this cycle, not all in one day, but little by little, in 2023, We've seen Pepe and a couple of other coins kind of go parabolic. At this exact time last year, so exactly 1 year ago in March 2024, we've had some of the coins kind of flirt with $2 to $5 billion valuations, right? And I think all of these things was essentially the market telling us that there's a high probability that this is going to be a meme coin focused cycle in one way or another, right? And just like Leon alluded to, there are core themes that happen in crypto every cycle, right? So, for example, in 2017, it was all about Ethereum and especially all about ICOs, right? Then in 2021, it was DeFi, it was yield farming, it was NFTs, it was the metaverse, etc., right? And I'm sure many of you remember this. And so you have to ask yourself, right? Like, what is this thing this cycle, right? And I think it is meme coins, right? But it's a very important distinction that we have to make. When we talk about meme coins, I think the meme coin industry is actually split into two categories, right? On one end, you have hyper gambling, essentially coins that just come and go every week, extremely fast paced, extremely short term, really people like it's not even trading, it's hyper gambling, what we call, right? It's pump funds. There've already been like 10 million of these coins just this cycle alone, right? And on the other hand, you have another category, and this is the category that I'm interested in. Essentially, people that are genuinely trying to build a community that can go to 10 billion, 50 billion, $100 billion and higher, right? Trying to reach the same heights that Doge and SHIB have reached exactly 4 years ago, right? Doge has famously reached 90 billion and SHIB 45 billion, right? And so this side, we kind of call it cults. Some people call it movements, but it's essentially much larger communities that are, for lack of a better example, are trying to build the next Doge, right? And I have immediately preferred this because I'm interested, and not only me personally, but I also think most people out there on the internet, in the world, etc., they don't want to trade 30 coins per day, right? They don't want to go in and out every 15 minutes. I think what most people want, including myself, is to find something that they can buy and hold for a year or longer, right? And that's kind of been the approach that I've taken this cycle, right? And essentially, if you take this approach, this leads you down to essentially what I call kind of like trying to figure out where the strongest cults are, right? And you kind of make a list of, call it 10 to 15 coins that you think are not just going to disappear next week, that are kind of here to stay to one extent or another. And then what you do, or at least what I have done, is try to kind of filter that to fewer and fewer coins. Try to figure out what this the next big thing is. What is the coin that has the highest chances of going to 50 billion and higher, right? Again, what is the next Doge? What is the next GME? What is the next kind of idea or concept that a ton of people around the world will be able to kind of unite around, right? And, in my personal opinion, and I don't mean to come out the gate and direct Shilly, but the coin that I think is that coin this cycle is a coin called SPX 6900, right? I don't know if any of you guys have heard of it already or not. It is inching towards what I call critical mass. Critical mass is essentially this point where things just start to go parabolic, start to go viral. But essentially, SPX 6900, it's a coin that was launched in the summer of 2023. And the core idea is to flip the entire stock market, right? It's essentially a coin that's trying to flip SPX 500. And I understand what many of you are thinking, right? What is this guy talking about? This is absolutely delusional. This is impossible. This is never going to happen. But I'm sure the smarter among you are already realizing that it's not a binary outcome, right? And for the more skeptical and pragmatic among you, you need to realize that what if this thing just covers 1% of the distance, right? If it just covers 1% of the distance, we are talking about 450 billion, which is already about 1,000x from here, right? And essentially, this is where the core insight comes in. Essentially, the more delusional something sounds, the better it is. Why? Because it's immediately like crazier sounding. It's immediately more ambitious sounding, and this kind of delusion, it's almost paradoxically attractive in a way because it's more exciting to try to do the impossible, and it's more exciting to actually have a coin with a mission. And this is kind of like my other theory is that like 99.99999% of coins, they don't have an actual mission. They don't have a goal, right? But when you do have a mission, you actually unite the community. And now, like, this is starting to, like, I'm starting to see people all over the planet talk about this. If you just, like, kind of search the hashtag SPX6900 on Twitter, you're going to, right? But last but not least, what I'll say is, one other angle to look at this is, I think every 4 or 5 years, something comes about, which is essentially a way for both sort of people to metaphorically throw out the middle finger to kind of, not just the crypto world, but like to the world at large, and at the same time kind of unite all together to try to make money in a way that like would be completely unthinkable. And just the possibility of that even happening kind of makes it a self-fulfilling prophecy little by little, right? So essentially, what I'm trying to say here is, and I kind of call this the pressure release valve theory, right? Essentially, I think every 4 or 5 years, some kind of an asset comes about that absorbs all of this kind of dissatisfaction that people have, right? And that, like, not just the greed, but the uniting mission all around it makes it really, really go parabolic. And I think that, it's all probabilistic in the end, but I think the highest chance, from what I'm seeing right now, both on social media and the chain, etc., I think SPX 6900 is going to be that next gym, right? So that's kind of like at a high level what I'm thinking. Kind of happy to continue the conversation further.
Thank you, Murad. Yeah, so that was a deep dive into what he basically talked about on that Tokyo 2049 video, getting into the core, which is it's all about cults, right? It's cults like Bitcoin started out as a cult, Ethereum became a cult, Solana, right, and whatnot, and when we look at other coins, like even coins in the crypto side of things, that like crypto OGs like myself and others, we make fun of XRP, we make fun of Cardano, but they have multi-billion-dollar market caps for a reason. I think part of that is because of that cult mentality too. And to put things in perspective, guys, like Doge added like 50 billion to its market cap in a month. I think XRP added 100 billion to its market cap in a month. Obviously, we've seen Trump coin add 75 billion to market cap in 3 days. When things get to like critical mass, as Murad says, like things can get pretty crazy. And to those who, maybe this is their first crypto cycle out there, it's like, you guys are worried about the short-term volatility. But as some people's person who's been through a few of these already, like the parabolic year, like the craziest gains happen in like the last few months of that year. So Murad, so you came out with this list of a dozen or so coins. Obviously, the best performer is SPX 6900, but there's other coins on that list. I know Giga, I think, has done the second best, but there's others that haven't done as well. There's Locked In Mini, Retardio. Do you think that's because it is all based on what's going on in the community? Are those communities changing, or is it all attention? Is it moving to SPX or elsewhere, or what would you say is going on with all the other coins you're kind of following?
Yeah, so when I first started making that list, that was just under a year ago. I believe I first started drafting this list in May of last year or June of last year. And the point I was trying to do kind of on my personal portfolio is I was essentially trying to do the following, right? I started to sense that this is going to be a meme coin focus cycle, and I wanted to quote unquote diversify across various categories, right? Some kind of like finance theme, others more sort of masculinity or archetypes theme. I had a couple of animals there, and I had a couple of like culture coins, CT native coins, etc. Right, schizo coins, and at the time it was a probabilistic bet. Essentially, I felt that this is going to be a meme coin cycle, but at that point in time, it was still unclear like what's going to be the winners. But so far, like I would say the top half of my list has been doing well, right? So the way I structured that portfolio is that like even if any one of those coins or two of these coins were going to do well, that would cover all the losses, right? But ultimately, I kind of ranked my list by probability of what I believed like would be the highest chances of success, and so far the performance roughly aligns with my ordering.
Gotcha. And yeah, so then let's focus on SPX next. So I recall you mentioned like back in early days in 2023, you were diving into different discords and kind of researching, like anonymously these different communities. Like, what did you see in the early days in that community, and then how that's new or changed today, and what are you tracking actually?
Yeah, so I came into it with the following way, right? Like, so we saw Doge hit 90 billion last cycle, and I had a sense that if QE is to restart, and at some point, crypto is going to have another one of these parabolic, sort of 3-4 month periods, then it became obvious to me that like just due to the nature of late capitalism and the system, there would probably be a meme coin that would surpass Doge, right? Because just from a philosophical perspective, like Doge is probably not like the end all be all in terms of memetics, right? And in terms of its reach, in terms of inspiration, etc. And so like the number one guiding question I had is like what can become bigger? And ultimately, the way I think about it is internal community targets matter a lot, right? And you have coins where the community is just aiming for a billion. You have coins that are aiming to be like the next SHIB, but there's no coin that are aiming to flip the stock market, right? And if you just very crudely assume that every coin is just going to reach 5% of their actual goal, then the higher your goal, the better, right? So that was kind of the first thing, right? Like their mission was the craziest thing, and I love crazy and delusional things. Because they always follow, not always, but they have a high chance of following this story, which is like at first it sounds ridiculous, then people are like no, then people are like well maybe, and then people are like wow, this is happening, so it's like this David versus Goliath type situations. They have this asymmetry where if you're right, you're going to be right and you're going to make a lot, and so when I was first researching SPX, I was really into the actual memes because at the end of the day, these are tokenized communities, but they kind of use memes as their message, right? They use memes as their medium of spreading their lore, their mission, recruitment tool, etc. And I looked into all of the memes that all the different communities were making, all the video memes, all of this artwork, etc. And SPX, they always had like really high IQ and really special, really unique memetics. It was like really well crafted. And, a lot of people, even earlier than this year, they were always saying something that I thought was very wise. And they said, like where artists go, culturally speaking, and you can kind of look at memes from a perspective of, it's like it is a giant art form in a way, right? It is essentially a way to convert like large community participation into wealth, right? And someone said something smart. They said where artists go, that's kind of like where normies are going to go in the future, right? Because like artists, they might not be good at math per se, but they're really good at kind of like sensing these like cultural waves and cultural trends. And also, the other theory is the coin that's going to win is going to be the coin that triggers what people call the most free called labor, right? What is free called labor? Essentially, the stronger the cult, the more free cult labor it triggers. And, all these communities, they have a bunch of engineers, they have a bunch of artists, they have a bunch of social media people, etc., etc. They have a bunch of video makers, etc. Right? And so the more emotion that it provides to the people, like the more inspiration it provides, the more it makes people feel something, the more of this free labor that these people would otherwise charge people to do, the more they would do it for free, right? And again, this kind of comes back to memetics, comes back to the mission. It's like the more emotion that you trigger in people's hearts, the more videos, memes, and just their hours of their time and energy they're gonna invest in spreading it even further, right? So ultimately, it all boils down to memetics. That's kind of on the qualitative side. You can also take like the drier and the less spiritual angle, and you can ask like, what's like the numbers behind all this? And there's like the other aspect of SPX, which is extremely strong. Some people, including myself, have been developing maybe 30 to 35 metrics by which they track kind of meme coins on chain, right? Essentially, how in stocks you have the PE ratio and a bunch of other kind of quote unquote fundamentals, you have these for memes as well, right? It has to do with holder growth rate, it has to do with the distribution, it has to do with decentralization, it has to do what's the median investment, what's the average investment, it has to do with, how many people there are with over $1,000, over $10,000, etc., 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 right? You can visit my Twitter to find a bunch of these. But essentially, what I'm trying to say here is SPX ranks first or second across like literally all of them, which essentially, both of these are telling you the same thing. Essentially, an average meme coin gets their median holder to invest about $100, right? But in SPX, that number is like crazy high. It's like something close to $1,000, which if you map all of the meme coins, even the most popular ones, nothing comes close, which essentially tells you that the average emotional effect that SPX 6900 related media has on an average person on the internet is like that much higher. And people are essentially voting with their money, but like instead of a democracy, you're voting with your money. Like that's what markets are, right? And people are on average, and both in terms of mean and median, they're investing much higher. And essentially, I'm seeing all these things, both on chain and in terms of what people are saying on social media, and I'm like, okay, and with every passing day, I'm starting to sense that like this might be the next Jamie, right? This might be the next Doge. And so this is kind of like some of the metrics that I've been tracking.
Gotcha. Thank you for that, Murad. You mentioned you might have to restart your VPN. Did you want to do that right now? We'll take a
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
I'll go ahead and do it.
Cool. And then Frank, I'll let you take the next couple of questions. But yeah, like I'm just gonna say like the metrics I've been following on it. He mentioned right like number of holders and how much they hold, and like I don't mean some friends we're in a competition of how many tokens we can accumulate ourselves. But Frank, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, cool.
I think it's really good, especially to hear Murad's journey and hear how he's come to the conclusions he has, and kind of his formulation of what he sees or visioned, his vision of what would happen this cycle. I found that very interesting from an insight standpoint. So we'll just wait for him to come back. I'll give him a quick intro of myself, and I'll jump in with him.
Yeah. When he's back, I'll do a Frank intro, and then you can do the Frank intro.
I think I'm good to go. Guys.
Oh, okay, cool. So, my friend Frank here, he's a TradFi guy, real estate, stock super whale guy. So, Frank, you go ahead and introduce yourself.
Yeah. Hi, Murad. My name's Frank. I've been involved in crypto pretty much around the same time that you got into it, maybe a little bit sooner. And I obviously got in as a fascinated with Bitcoin and everything about it, and I became completely obsessive. And goes back to the early days of Andreas Antonopoulos, Bitcoin Jesus, and all the crazy things that used to go on back then with the libertarian community and all that stuff. And yeah, I've been a traditional TradFi investor as well, real estate. So I have a pretty well-rounded background in investing. I'm excited and always interested in new ways of how can I say this, finding amazing returns. And crypto's always been one of those avenues for me, where I've been very fortunate over the years. So with that being said, I really appreciate you giving the background of your story, kind of the journey and your vision for this cycle, kind of where you went with meme coins and SPX 6900. Full disclosure, I own SPX 6900. I own it because of your presentation, your thesis, and your passion around it. That's when I did a little bit more of a deep dive, myself, Leon, and others, and I jumped right in SPX 6900. I also would say my other, probably my largest position along with SPX 6900 is Sparkcoin. I've been following that since Goatsy, when Goatsy came out with Truth Terminal, AI memes, and I saw the explosion around that. But looking at the mind share out there with Farcoin and what's been going on there and the community around that is also something that kind of came out of left field with the AI themes this cycle. And it was something I just never foresaw coming or obviously could predict would happen this cycle, but I jumped on into it. Well, let me get into a couple questions, and we can talk about that. I love to hear your thoughts about the AI memes and mindshare and cult and communities and those types of things. So my concern this cycle, as opposed to past cycles, is when we're going to talk about Bitcoin dominance and the transition between Bitcoin dominance and alt seasons and the traditional funds flow that would occur. You also mentioned QE and liquidity in the 4-year cycle and all those things, but let's assume that does come into play. And QE comes in and we have the final push up in the banana zone and everyone's happy. Funds flows are, traditionally go from Bitcoin to ETH to alts and all the way down to lower market cap coins, and everything moves. My concern for this cycle is the fact that a lot of the capital and a lot of retail has left traditional crypto and it's gone into TradFi, and there's a lot of capital now locked up, especially retail in TradFi ETFs and other types of vehicles, whether it's MicroStrategy or other vehicles of holding or getting exposure to crypto, because a lot of retail people have been burnt. They don't want to be leaving funds or value on exchanges. And my concern is that we have now, some estimates are saying anywhere between $300 to $500 billion is now locked up, which would have been potentially slushing around in the traditional crypto pool. Do you see that as a limiting factor this cycle to potential funds flow from traditional Bitcoin dominance down to the lower alts this cycle, or do you think this is a nothing burger? I'd just love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, you definitely raised some good points on the dynamics this cycle are slightly different than last cycle. But I think people also underestimate just how relatively little by way of actual money is required to send some of these like alternative crypto assets to ridiculous valuations. At the end of the day, they're less liquid, and their liquidity is quite stratified across several platforms. And ultimately, I think that even if just several billion comes in, for each dollar, it's going to send these market caps significantly higher. I've actually heard an argument saying that precisely because there is not enough money at the moment to really push the bigger assets more significantly, that might incentivize the system as a whole to actually send money to the less to kind of push the less liquid stuff, because they would know that collectively it's much more likely that would perform better precisely because it takes less money to do so, right? But ultimately, if we take a step back and we think from the perspective of the average millennial, or even let alone Zoomer, these people know that it was the boomers and the Gen Xers that predominantly benefited from sort of the last 45-year financial experiment, right? And, you don't need to be 150 IQ to understand that if you're buying real estate or the traditional equity indices right now, you are pretty much bailing out boomers yet again. You're playing into their trap. You will never, depending on how you look at it, but in my opinion, I don't think that's the kind of wealth builder that it once was, right? And I'm skeptical that the returns on these assets are going to be as high over the coming 20 years as they were over the preceding 20 years. That's my opinion, right? And so fundamentally, we see stats just this morning. I was reading that, an average Zoomer doesn't have a month's worth of savings, right? So ultimately, I think if you guys are focused on social arbitrage, right, you have to put yourself in the shoes of these kinds of people. And I don't think they're going to be buying traditional assets. And even if you look at the largest crypto assets, you already have the likes of BlackRock and sovereign wealth funds lining up to participate. And, if sovereign wealth funds are starting to slosh around their money, we're probably reaching the level of maturity in the largest crypto assets where the young, like the small guys, are not going to be making a lot of money here, right? So ultimately, they have to ask themselves, what is going to be the money maker this time around, right? And you guys alluded to the AI sphere, AI sector. A lot of these coins, they kind of came and went. At the end of the day, I still think they're all meme coins. Fundamentally, my belief is that actually every crypto asset that has ever existed was a meme coin all along, just with different sort of trinkets and designs and communications to kind of paint it in a different way, right? So fundamentally, I think if you actually study the past crypto cycles, the things that did well during quote-unquote year 3, they continue to do well during year 4. And I personally think this is because of momentum effects and these critical mass type effects. And my view is that in the second half of 2025, the assets that are going to do well are going to be the same leaders from 2024. And so you just study the top 20 performers of 2024 and make your bets there. And that's kind of been the drum that I've been beating on over the past 8 or 9 months.
So, as a follow-up specifically, you did allude to the AI memes. Do you have any investments in them? Do you see any of those? I see Fartcoin as one that checks almost all your metrics. The only one, obviously, wasn't in a previous cycle. It's had a 70+% pullback. It's come back from that. It's back down again. It looks like it's really doing well and recovering. It's got a huge cult or huge community following. Probably one of the largest, if not the largest, last I checked, mine shares out there from a meme coin asset standpoint. I'm just wondering, do you have any investments in any of those? Other than the list that you show, what are your thoughts on them? What are your thoughts specifically on Fartcoin or Goatsy? I just wanted to hear basically on those specific points.
Yeah, so I think that when it comes to cults, loyalty is very, very important, both internally and externally. So I have not deviated from my top 10 picks, and I don't plan to until early 2026 at a minimum, because if it is truly a cult, then loyalty is an important factor. So I cannot be diversifying away from my initial picks too much. And because of that, I would rather be building up my existing positions that try to make new bets. That being said, I like Fartcoin, but I love SPX 6900. And the fact that Fartcoin ultimately beat out Goatsy in the end is, I believe, evidence of my theory. And the theory being that these things have been meme coins all along. No one actually cares about utility. And at the end of the day, all that matters is the actual community, right? And I am not making any investments into any AI related coins this cycle because, again, they're all just memes and there are stronger memes out there. And two, it's all about people at the end of the day. And I would rather go where people are like much more loyal and much louder and much more passionate, right? Because like no one is really that passionate about AI, like AI coins. The people that are truly passionate about AI techs aren't even in crypto, and the people that are actually passionate about these things, they're in other coins, in my opinion. So I don't think this is going to be a utility cycle at all. I expect Bitcoin dominance to continue climbing, but that doesn't mean that we're not going to have giant meme coin runners anyway, because even 100 billion for a coin, I don't think that would put a dent into Bitcoin dominance.
That's awesome. I really appreciate you providing that clarity. I just have one last thing I want to share, and that's about Doge. And I know you touched on Doge and your thesis on Doge. And my only pushback on Doge, I don't really call it pushback, but just a couple of comments. It is the original meme, if you want to think about it that way. And it stands out from a lot of the other memes out there that it's its own standalone blockchain, which is pretty unique. Yes, there is a couple of versions of Pepe, and one of them is a standalone. But for the most part, Doge was the first one, has its own standalone blockchain. Full disclosure, right now I don't have any exposure to Doge. I've had it many times in the past. I remember they used to give Doge away for free. Yeah, I mean, I still think Doge is always going to be there. I think it's always going to have a strong community, a strong backing, and it has a very strong foundation just because it is the first of its kind and it has that uniqueness to it. So that's just my 2 cents of Doge. Not to say that you're going to become a multi millionaire with it, but I think it's always going to be there, and I think it's going to have standing if memes are still going to be around. That's just my 2 cents.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it has that size and lore and Lindy effect where it is going to persist being a multi-cycle asset. I don't think there is any doubt about that. But the little kind of pushback I'll have against this is I don't think the average investor cares about whether a coin has its own chain or not. I think the actual concept is more important. What's the message of the idea? Like what is the meme, you know? And so I think what Dogecoin has enjoyed, it's enjoyed the first mover advantage as far as meme coins go, but the actual meme itself, I think culturally it peaked in 2013 and financially it peaked in 2021. Yes, if they start doing aggressive QE, it might make new highs, but I just think there are more sort of next generation and like kind of cooler and more spicier memes out there,
Cool.
All right, that was awesome. I really appreciate your comments and your feedback. I'll hand it back to Leon. Thank you, Murad.
For sure.
Yeah, thank you, Frank. Murad. So speaking of multi-cycle assets and whatnot, and here in this Discord, I try to teach people about this 4-year cycle, which maybe we have 1 or 2 more of these left, and then it might change to something else. And usually the smart move would be to kind of divest towards the end of the year. Now the cycles get a little bit longer each time, so maybe it's not end of Q4, maybe it's like Q1 next year. But what are your obviously you've said that you will hold multi-cycle, but you will divest some of it. What is your current exit plans, and how has that changed over time, or how do you think it may change, or what's your
It hasn't changed at all. Kind of since day one, I said I'll do what I'll do, and that's exactly what I'll do. Essentially, I'll probably sell half. Either at the end of 2025 or beginning of 2026, and I'll just keep the other half until next cycle. So that's very, very simple strategy.
Gotcha. Yeah, 100%. Because guys, typically the year after the Bitcoin halving is the parabolic run, and usually, it's basically like we've got like 15 years of history now, and it's like usually in November and December where the markets top out. Again, this is the first time we're in a pro crypto environment, and we just have not seen that yet. We haven't crypto hasn't existed. Alexa, stop. Sorry about that. Another question, Murad, and then I want to throw it to Mid. I see my tax guys on here. So Murad, I know you're kind of connected possibly to the crypto scene in Asia and Dubai. And how are what are your thoughts on retail investors and VCs in that space? Are they talking about meme coins? Are meme coins on their radar? What's the kind of like the culture environment there?
Yeah. So this is actually what I was discussing with my friend earlier this morning. This is what I'm real. So one thing I do is I kind of wake up every single day and I go through certain hashtags, go through certain sort of Twitter lists that I have, and kind of try to kind of get the vibe for things, right? To try to stay up to date with things. And one thing I was literally just discussing a few hours ago was, I always like kind of anticipated this and believed in this, but it really just fully internalized this just maybe a couple of weeks ago, is that, this meme coin thing is not just going to be a Western phenomenon, right? It's not just going to be an Anglo-Saxon phenomenon. I think it's going to be everywhere. And actually, and Leon, I'm pretty sure you remember this, like even SHIB had a really, really big Asia presence, right? Mm-hmm. And I think we're going to see something like this. And I expect, like, essentially, what I'm trying to say here, I'm seeing people from all over the place. Asia, Middle East, India, and a bunch of other countries. It's a fully global thing. And I always talk about the best meme coins are going to be these quote unquote vessels for dissatisfaction, or these like kind of absorbers, right? And America is actually doing relatively well in the world, right? And if you actually look at a lot of other places, they're doing much worse, right? I remember when Europe and USA had the same GDP and GDP per capita in 2009, but right now the situation is completely different, right? And in other places are even worse, right? And so I think that you could even argue that people outside of the Western world are even more likely to adopt these cults/movements just because they are hungrier, but also the fact that blockchain is fundamentally this hyper decentralized thing that's accessible everywhere. So TLDR is I'm seeing people join from all over the place. The UAE has always had an insanely large crypto presence, and that's just going to continue to accelerate.
100%. So real quick, audience. Yeah, we're getting to the top of the hour. If anyone wants to ask a question, raise your hand. I see Mit's on the stage. Mit, do you have any questions for Murad or thoughts?
Yeah, hey Murad, how are you? Big fan of your content and a very, very heavy holder of SPX 6900. So it's probably number one in my portfolio right now in terms of exposure, crypto exposure at the least. My background is very, very unique. I'm a tax strategist and a finance restructuring guy. And I got exposure to crypto back in like 2015 with Leon back in the day. So it's been an exciting journey in this space. And I would say, I'm following the community. I'm liking it. I probably have some of the weirdest questions. Okay. And you probably find it awkward, actually. Awkward. Okay, the first question I have is, do you have any insights from a family office, institutional investor coming into SPX 6900? You talked about it long back in some of your town hall sessions. From that perspective, because that typically is what creates the supernova growth, because they try to get exposure into it. So do you foresee that happening anytime soon, especially knowing that culture on meme in the institutional has faded a little bit temporarily? I'm hoping it sparks back. So do you see maybe the Saudi family office trying to get exposure to SPX 6900, or trying to get in the game, and not just the cult community and the community that's really diehard fans like me. From that perspective, that's one question, and then the other question is.
So let me answer the first question first. So it is happening as we speak. I can't name exact names, but maybe 4 or 6 weeks from now, you'll probably be hearing about this more openly. But there are definitely funds. There are definitely funds and institutions that are, let's say, dipping their toes in right now.
Okay, and you're absolutely sure about that, because that was the case a while ago, but they did not do it, and they just kind of dipped away from them.
I am absolutely sure of it, but you should also not you shouldn't wait for kind of Wall Street types to bail you out. You know what I mean? Spiritually speaking, because I think that in the grand scheme of things, it actually doesn't take that much money to take this thing to like 100 billion plus. It only takes maybe 5 billion or 10 billion of real money. So fundamentally, that money can come from retail. You know what I mean? That's the thing. And I think that the family offices, they're not stupid. The funds, they're not stupid. They will buy whatever has momentum, and they don't care like how that momentum came to be in the first place. But I'm advising a couple. I'm advising a couple of them right now, and they're definitely DCing.
Okay, good. Yeah, and look, I'm like not the institutional, but the retail owner, large retail owner. But I've seen the little whales come out and new ones come in from that aspect. So I appreciate you mentioning that. The second question, which is kind of the weird one, okay? And I may be wrong because I'm a finance guy, so I could probably misspeak to this. But you had mentioned just a while ago that there's quite a bit of strong holding community in SPX 6900, and you have the artists, you have the power force in it. I really feel that website is outdated. Like, can they not push it and revamp it and make it more friendly?
We can, but it's meant to be satire on Bloomberg. That's why it's kind of a conscious choice to make it. It's a conscious choice to make it look like this, and it's actually maybe 85 of my friends from university are on Wall Street right now. And I've obviously been getting them involved. And out of all of the coins that I pitch them, the SPX resonates with them the most because they immediately get the idea what is happening here. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So maybe they can remake it to a Bloomberg terminal layout kind of thing, something like that. But that just looks like from the 1990s, website.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Maybe. So I believe and. I actually joined a year after that website was already out, but I believe that they're not going for the Bloomberg terminal. They're just going for the Bloomberg.com website, which statistically way more people have used, right?
Okay.
Right. And essentially it's trying to make a bet on that conversion.
Okay. Interesting. Okay. Oh yeah, that's all I had. I think I was a little bit crazy with my questions, but those are the things. I'm sold on the model and the success of it. Leon and I are YOLO on this. That's it, one and for all.
Awesome.
Great question.
Hey, I just have one follow up question from Mitt's line of questioning. It made me kind of think for a second. Murad, where is SPX 6900 getting funding for community building from? Where's that funds flow coming from to, let's say, to Mitt's point, maybe upgrade the website, keep things going, keep building the community in some way? I'm just kind of curious seeing the way the project was launched and stuff like that. Maybe I'm missing something of where that funds flow feedback is to actually have that community from.
The answer is the same for all decentralized meme coins, and it's like top 50 whales just donate to make things happen.
Okay. Is that actually happening?
Yep.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Cool. Yeah, great questions, Mitt. Yeah, I forgot to say this earlier in the call, but like nothing here is financial advice. It's just entertainment and informational purposes only. And obviously, we're exploring different, exploring Murad's meme coin thesis and more a deeper dive into crypto and meme coins in general. And to admit, and also full disclosure, I am managing 6 different meme coin funds, and I did the PvP game, I overtraded, and now it's just all SPX in all of them. And when I found out how much SPX Mid had, I was like, what? I had to compete with Mid now. But yeah.
Oh,
thanks
one
for
more
the
thing,
question.
Leon.
Yeah.
We need to say this clearly. None of this is financial advice. And
Yeah.
no one should take anything we're saying as financial advice. So just want to make sure that's clear up there.
Oh, 100%. We do have a question from the chat. So it's from Sevens. Hi, Murad. Previously, you mentioned expectations that memes as a sector can potentially reach 1 trillion this cycle. SPX seems best positioned to be the Doge of this cycle. But do you expect it to happen once the meme sector is already hot? Do you think it can possibly be a trigger for other memes to run, similar to how Doge Run allowed sheep to run months later? Yeah.
Yeah, so, I'm sticking to my target. I think 1 trillion for meme coins is less crazy than it sounds. And, whether it happens this cycle or next cycle, I don't know. But for SPX specifically, my target is 100 billion this cycle and 1 trillion next cycle. I know some people will think it's too much, but that's what I believe is going to happen. So, I'm sticking to all my targets.
Gotcha. And yeah, no, I think that's realistic too. Like, I mean, total crypto right now, it's 2.73 trillion. I'm expecting total crypto to be closer to 9-10 trillion. Probably top out before 10, probably 9. And I think a lot of people are waking up too. It's like, we tried the whole utilities, and like you said, we've done research on these chains, and the revenue these tech coins make do not equate to $15 billion market caps. So it's like,
definitely not.
Yeah, it's like Gen Z is creating their own sector. Another question by Mr. Joek. Do you see this becoming more readily available to the average investor? So I guess like exposure exchanges.
Yes. I think, we've already seen Robinhood list a bunch of stuff. We've seen Revolut list a bunch of stuff. I think once memes, and I expect memes to do well, like over the next 8 to 12 weeks. I think once a bunch of them like reclaim the $1 billion mark, I think you're going to start seeing the missing centralized exchanges list them as well. But yeah, I mean, it's just a matter of price and attention in the short to medium term. I think meme coins are going to make a huge comeback in 2025, and the centralized exchanges, I think, are going to want to get in on that game.
1,000%. Okay, we got one more. We'll end this with this last question here from B. Hi, Murad. Being such a big KOL, how will your exit strategy work without being a massive rug pull as retail follows you and tracks your wallets?
Yeah, so I think, and we're already kind of starting to see this, but I think that as time goes by, my personal relative importance is going to gradually diminish. I think that by the time some of these coins are 10, 50, 100 billion or whatever, if I'm right about those numbers, then my personal participation in terms of liquidity, in terms of volume, in terms of size, is going to represent a smaller fraction of like the whole story. So I'm not really concerned about that, to be honest. And, everything I've ever said, that's exactly what I've ever done. And I think that if I sell half of my coins like 8 or 9 months from now, I don't think anyone is going to care, to be honest.
Yeah, 100%, especially where we think things are going. Well, thank you for that your time, Murad. I know it's super early where you're at the moment. You hope you get some good rest, and would love to catch up later.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thanks, guys. Thanks, Frank. Thanks, Mitt.
Thanks, Leon. Thanks, Murad. Thanks, Mitt.
Boom, boom. Thanks, everyone, for watching on YouTube. That was us in the dumbmoney.tv Discord stage room talking about his thesis. And yeah, this is just me now, just talking. I'm going to pull up the chart at SPX, actually. Oh, wait, hold on. Should I? It's like there is no chart, but nah, I'm going to do it because we're dumb money. All right. So, yeah, it's, in my opinion, like I said earlier on in the discussion, it's like each crypto cycle, each 4-year cycle. So you got the Bitcoin halving, you got the parabolic top, you got the bear market, you got accumulation, and the halving year. It starts over and over again. There's always a sub asset class within crypto that outperforms everything. And I said this earlier on. That, like I said, the first cycle it was just Bitcoin. The second cycle it was Ethereum, and not just Ethereum, but the Ethereum ICOs, where like there was a 10x, 100x every single day. Then we saw the same thing happen in the cycle after that with the DeFi tokens, yield farming, and then NFTs, where we saw like Bored Apes that you could buy for $200 go to $500,000 by the end of that cycle. Like there's always the tail end risk assets, which just like when and we're talking about Bitcoin's going up, like several 100% in a cycle itself, and then you have these lower, higher risk assets just parabolically explode, and then you get the cycle ending. So, like I said, I was trying to figure out what that was, and after watching Murad's Token 2049 video, I was like, meme coins. Now, my only regret was obviously that was September 25th of last year. Wish I'd gone in a little heavier back then, but yeah, it just stinks. So I recommend checking out those videos. In the description of this video, I want to link to Pompliano and Murad talking about Bitcoin, and I'll also link to that Token 2049 video. But until then, thanks for listening. This is the Brave Money podcast.